Good evening. If you can take your seats, we'll get started promptly. My name is Dr. Noreen Leahy. I'm the Assistant Superintendent for Pupil Personnel Services and Special Education here in Rockville Center. Thank you so much for coming this evening. It's really a pleasure to see so many community members here with us this evening for our Parent Mental Health Summit. The summit is sponsored by the Rockville Center School District and was organized by the district's newly formed Mental Health Task Force. I'm pleased that so many educators, administrators, Board of Education members, and community members are here to learn about and become more aware of ways in which we can promote and maintain a healthy mental health environment for our developing children. There are almost 100 Rockville Center employees, administrators, Board of Ed members, faculty, and staff represented here tonight. Our interest and concern about our students, your children, and their well-being cannot be overstated or cannot be better demonstrated by their attendance this evening. My colleague, Orly Godone, has a beautiful 4-year-old daughter named Anna L. Recently, Orly shared with me something that Anna L. had shared with her mommy and daddy at dinner. Something she had learned at preschool. She said, "Ima, you should never yuck in someone's yum." If sweet Anna L. only knew the wisdom of her words, which transcended the seemingly simple message about how to behave at snack time. While Anna L. learned not to scrunch up her face at someone else's snack choices, the lesson applies to so much more. This simple message bears internalizing and repeating to our own children, no matter their age. Think about it. We yuck in someone else's yum every time we discriminate. Bullies yuck in someone else's yum. We yuck in someone's yum when we're intolerant. We yuck in someone's yum when we fail to build relationships or when we neglect our responsibility to build trust. Not yucking in someone's yum can prevent loneliness, isolation, disenfranchisement. Not yucking in someone's yum helps build confidence rather than tear it down. If only the lessons we as teachers and parents must pass on to our children were as simple and effective as Anna L.'s lesson in kindness, tolerance, and relationship building. Predictably, things get more complicated as kids get older and our babies grow. It's part of life. And all the more reason to take every opportunity to learn more about their development and how best to help our children navigate life's journey. While parenting can be challenging, it is by far and without question the most joy-filled experience and responsibility any of us will ever have. We bring you evenings like this to promote positive support of healthy mental outlook and not necessarily to focus on what might go wrong. Remember, not everything is pathology. Happiness is important and not mutually exclusive with the hard work of school and sports and making friends. Sometimes kids get mad, they get sad, they get nervous, and they get scutchy. And that doesn't necessarily translate to aggressive, depressed, anxious, and conduct disordered. Mad, sad, nervous, and scutchy might just mean that someone yucked in their yum. So keeping everything in proportion as parents can be tricky. Understanding how to best raise and support strong, resilient children and adolescents is even more so. So as a team in a school district, we are offering several different events this year to help build these skills. And hopefully those events will be ongoing. I just want to mention a couple of them. There will be a mindfulness school initiative demonstration and meeting at Southside Middle School on October 29th. We've had an ongoing mindfulness initiative in the district for about 2 years, where staff members have been trained, and this is your opportunity to learn about what we've been doing in our schools. On November 2nd, Mercy Medical Center's consortium of a number of interested parties, including the school district, are putting on an evening that'll, a Saturday morning presentation that will talk about the despair in our community, basically around the theme of loneliness. And they have 4 excellent speakers planned for that event as well. On November 18th, the Drug Alcohol Task Force and the Rockville Center Coalition for Youth are putting on a parent presentation. Alex Berenson will be speaking. He's the author of the book about telling your children the truth about marijuana and violence and mental illness. It's an excellent book, and I'm sure he'll be a very riveting speaker. Then on November 19th and the 20th, there is an opportunity to attend an 8-hour youth mental health first aid for parents. That's a pretty big commitment, so the flyer will be going on about that shortly. After our keynote presentation and introduction of our workshop facilitators, you'll be able to participate in 2 of 7 offered workshops, in two scheduled workshop sessions. Workshop session 1 will take place from 8 until 8:40, and workshop session 2 from 8:50 to 9:30. The description and location of these workshops can be found in the brochure that we handed out this evening and on several different signs that are posted around the building. We also have some faculty members there to help you find your way and some maps of the school out on the tables outside the auditorium. I'm very grateful to our presenters who have prepared relevant and interesting programs this evening. They will be introduced along with their workshop descriptions after our keynote presentation. Dr. Fura is the Director of Pediatric Emergency Psychiatry and Behavioral Health Urgent Care at Cohen Children's Medical Center. Her impressive education and professional background can be found inside your brochure, so I won't repeat that here. I want to introduce her as a friend of Rockville Center and someone who has been an essential partner in our work to build and maintain supportive and responsive environment. She's given us much guidance about what programs to plan and also how to respond when a crisis occurs. I'd like you to please welcome Dr. Fura.
Thank you. Thank you for that kind introduction, and thank you for having me here tonight. I'm gonna try to figure out how to advance the slides. I'm going to try to set the tone for the night. You have wonderful workshops from my wonderful colleagues set up today, so I'm going to talk about some basics. First, before we get started, can I get an idea of who's in the room? How many of you have high school children? Okay, big group. How many middle school children? Okay. How many of you have elementary school children and preschoolers? Okay. Toddlers? Newborns? Okay. Okay, so it seems like everybody is very well represented, so we'll talk about some interesting things for all of you guys. So first, what is mental health? Today is actually the International Day of Mental Health Awareness, and I think that's important to mention. Mental health can be defined in many, many different ways. It is a person's condition with regard to their psychological, emotional, and social well-being, or we can say that the mental health affects how we think, feel, and behave. Mental health determines how well we cope with stress and relate to others or make choices. And there's many things that mental health is not. You know, mental health is certainly important. It is something that we all have. It is something that's as important, if not more important, than physical health. It's something that innately connected to physical health, and physical health influences our mental health, and our mental health influences our physical health. It's also something that's worth making time for, something that's part of being a human, something that we need to look after, something that we need to nurture from birth on, something that can be positive or negative, some things that changeable, complex, and real. What is it not? It's not synonymous with mental illness. It's not a sign of weakness. It need not to be shameful. It need not to be always negative. It is something, not something that you can decide to have or not have. It's something that you don't only think about when it's broken, you have to think about it always. It's doesn't mean we're feeling good all the time. It doesn't mean that it's something that you can snap out of, and it's not something fixed, which is very important. We can all, no matter where we are in our lifespan, we can all do things to improve on our mental health and our well-being. It also can be thought of along a continuum. So like I said, it's not synonymous with mental illness. Somebody can be diagnosed with a mental illness and be well and have good mental health, and somebody cannot have a mental illness or a psychiatric issue and can still have very poor mental health. So the two things are moving along a continuum. So how are the children? This is the statistics from NAMI, the National Alliance of Mental Illness. Up to 20%, so 1 in 5 children in America will have diagnosed with some sort of mental health condition. About 11% of youth have some sort of mood disorder, 10% of youth a conduct disorder or behavior disorder, and 8% are diagnosed with an anxiety disorder. And actually, that number is on the climb, and it's increasing. Also, a very tragic statistic is that suicide is now the second leading cause of death in children. It kills more kids than all other medical illnesses combined. The only thing that is above suicide is accidents. That's the only thing that kills more kids. But even kids as young as age 10 to 24, suicide is the second leading cause of death. And even more distressing, numbers show that between 1999 and 2016, the biggest increase is in the age group of 10 to 14-year-old adolescent females. They had a 300% increase during those years in completed suicides. The only other age group that has similar numbers is elderly men. So it's very, very important to talk about. And 90% of those who commit suicide do have some sort of diagnosed mental illness. So we're going to talk a little bit about, so how do we foster good mental health in our children? How does it start? So it starts with brain development. Brains develop from birth and even in utero all the way until adulthood, even into our adulthood. Multiple millions of neurons form during the first 3 years of life is the most rapid development, but that development continues well into adolescence, and not just new connections being built, but also unused connections being so-called pruned and taken away. So brains are plastic, and they develop, and how they develop is really an interaction of genes, what we come with, what we are born with, and also the experiences that we have, the environment that we live in develops our brain. The graph there shows that, it is much easier to change brains when you're young, and it's much harder when you're older. And when you have a lot of stress in your life, if the stress levels are very high and toxic, that toxic stress weakens the architecture of the brain the same way as a house. If they have weak architecture and if they're weakened, then it's going to be more difficult to have a stable house. The same is true of brains. If you have toxic stress constantly on the developing brain, it's going to have consequences well into adulthood, and it's going to be very difficult then to have a stable brain. Emotional development starts when we're very, very young, when we're babies. These are faces of babies. You can probably identify the emotions on their faces. And, emotional development starts with newborns. And newborns basically have two emotions. They're either happy or they're not, right? So they're either satisfied, they have pleasure, or they express distress. Social smile, which is a response to a caregiver or to somebody that the child feels safe with, starts developing as young as week 6 of life. And you all remember that first precious smile when it wasn't just while sleeping, this, random smile, but it was a response to you and how sweet that felt. We'll never forget that. 6 to 12 months of age, more complex feelings start to develop. Kids start to have fear. We all know the first time that stranger anxiety develops, and in the beginning, babies don't really care who they're with, but after 6 months of age, they start developing anxiety around strangers and develop that fear. They also start developing disgust, anger, sadness. At 2 years of age, they start feeling shame. That's young. You don't necessarily think of 2-year-olds as being ashamed, but they really can be, and it's really, really important to acknowledge that. At that age, they also start having feelings like guilt and pride, and this is coming with the emergence of autonomy when a 2-year-old really wants to do what they want to do. You know, you all heard the term terrible twos. They're really not terrible, it's just that they're discovering their independence and they're trying out their autonomy and they're testing things and they're trying to be autonomous. And then when they are succeeding in something, they're very proud of themselves. They're very happy with that, and they start having those feelings. At 4 years of age, kids learn to alter their emotional expressions. So, for example, when somebody gives them a birthday gift that they don't really like, they learn to say thank you and smile, while inside they're feeling very upset that they didn't get their favorite Lego. They're still able to alter the expression and, outwardly express something else. And 7 to 11 years of age, they start really learning self-regulation skills and learning to regulate their emotions and develop confidence and self-esteem. 3 major components on how these emotions develop. One is social learning, right? Kids mimic us, they copy us, they model. You have to model good emotional regulation. You have to show that even something's upsetting, you're not gonna throw a tantrum, except sometimes. But they learn from social learning, they learn from their environment. Also, the most important component to somebody having good emotional regulation is a secure attachment to a primary caretaker figure, and that cannot be understated. As long as kids have at least one adult in their life, and it doesn't have to be the parent, it can be somebody else, but as long as they have one adult in their life that responds to their needs and always responds to their needs, they can get securely attached, and then later on that can lead to emotional regulation and being able to control emotions. And then there's temperament, which is something that we all come with. There are kids, and those of you who have multiple kids, you know how different they are. They all are born with different temperaments. I have one at home who's very anxious and slow to warm and sort of cautious, and I have another one who's very social. And it's funny because my older son, who's the anxious one, will say about my little one, we were in temple and he ran up to the stage, and when he was 2 years old, the little one, and the older one went like, doesn't he know everybody's looking at him? Like, doesn't he realize that? And of course he does realize it, but he loves it. The other one doesn't. So they're very different. They come with different temperaments. And it is important to be attuned to a child's temperament, because we all have to alter our parenting styles to match the temperament of our child. So if one of them is more anxious and more fearful, you have to respect that. You have to be knowledgeable about that. You have to be able to adjust to that and adjust your expectations of them and understand, where they're coming from, essentially. To have good mental health, kids have to have resilience. Resilience really means that in face of adverse circumstances, despite having stressful experiences in life, you are able to regulate emotions and sort of overcome that. And it can be thought of as this seesaw, that on the one side you have all the positive things, and on the other side you have the negative things, and the fulcrum in the middle is really you come with a natural disposition, like we said, but what experiences you have can move that fulcrum and help you or work against you in terms of what you can manage in your life. So how can you tip the scale towards the positive? I keep looking back because I don't know if I'm pushing the button right. So to tip the scale, you really have to facilitate stable, supportive adult-child relationships. Again, children learn from us. They learn within the context of relationships with adults, so they have to have those supportive relationships. But it cannot just be all support. You also have to provide kids with the opportunity to have a sense of self-efficacy, because if you do their science homework for them at 9 o'clock when they forgot to do it, and you do the whole thing, they're not really going to learn anything from that. But if you sit with them and you teach them how to get through the problems, and then also understand that, maybe 9 o'clock the day before is not the best time to start doing this, then that's something that they're gonna learn, and they're gonna have perceived control over what they can do and how efficient they can be in life. So they have to have these opportunities to strengthen their skills and to learn how to regulate their own emotions. And a lot of the times mobilizing sources of faith, hope, and cultural traditions can also help in tipping that scale. So how do we foster resilience? First of all, we have to connect. Children need connections in their life with us, with their peers. Those connections are what makes us human, and those connections, knowing that there's support behind me, knowing that there's somebody who has my back, can really help foster resilience. Again, you cannot eliminate all risks. You can't accommodate all the time. That does not really help promote mastery and self-efficiency. You have to give them the chance to fall down and learn for themselves. You have to teach them good self-care, and I'll talk a little bit about diet, exercise, and sleep, and how that all fits into this. And you have to teach them life skills. You have to nurture a positive self-image, and positive self-image doesn't mean endlessly praising them for everything just because they exist. It means acknowledging accomplishments, acknowledging not necessarily the result, but the effort put in and how much they invested in what they're doing. You have to help them set goals and break them down so that if they know that they're working towards something, even if it seems very distant or very far, if you help break it down to smaller, more achievable goals and know that you're working towards something, that's going to help them. You have to keep things in perspective and maintain a hopeful outlook. So when they think that getting a bad grade on their test is the end of the world, you have to help them understand, put that in perspective and help them understand how that fits in their life. You have to provide them opportunities for self-discovery, accept that changes and difficulties are a part of life and part of living. The goal is not to never have problems. The goal is being able to deal with them when you do have them. And encourage them to get involved with causes beyond themselves, get involved with their community, do volunteer work, and that can start very small when they're very little and can go when they're older into doing more significant things. So talking a little bit about sleep, we have to give sleep a chance. So we said, sleep, diet, exercise are all part of good mental health and good physical health. So lack of good quality sleep doesn't only impact on our physical health, it largely impacts on our mental health as well. Mental health issues, on the other hand, if you have mental illness, those can impact sleep, and a lot of them do. And so there's a back and forth relationship between the two. One very important thing to do in this day and age for good sleep is limiting technology before bedtime. We know that screens and the blue light that they emit disrupt sleep, and it's really important at least the hours before sleep to limit that, because we don't even understand how much it impacts on our sleep, but it really does disrupt the ability. It disrupts melatonin, which is our sleep hormone, which that curve is our natural circadian rhythm there, and so we all go through the sleep urge. Everybody recognizes when the red line tops the other one around 2 o'clock. That's when we need our coffee. Everybody has increased sleep need at that time and sleep urge. So when the two connect, that's when you feel really, really sleepy. You have to set good sleep routines and sleep hygiene from early on. That means having a routine, having the bedtime to be about the same time every day, no screens of any kind in the bedroom, and no distractions of any kind in the bedroom. We could talk for hours about sleep, but I'm gonna keep going. Exercise is another very, very important thing to address. It doesn't only, we know it improves physical health, right? We know it improves our hearts, it improves our lungs, it improves our muscles and skeletal system, but it also, there's studies that have been done with kids with ADHD and having them on an exercise bike with a screen that engages them, that shows them where they're biking, and it actually, the studies had shown that they performed much, much better on tests and had improved attention after physical exercise. So it really, there is evidence that it improves attention. There's also evidence that it improves mood. There's all kinds of different studies on this. We know that exercise improves our mood. There's many, many reasons. You've all heard of endorphins being released when we exercise and you know how that impacts. But there's also studies that show that exercise outside in nature, and especially near a body of water, is especially beneficial for mood. And I think, you know, if you've had that experience, you'd all agree that we all feel better afterwards. It can also promote good confidence in kids. Also provides opportunities for social interactions, especially team sports, but every other sport as well. And it really instills a lifetime of good habits because as we age and our metabolism slows down, all the more important to have those habits instilled early on in life. Couple words about nutrition. There's more and more study, and there's even a subsection of psychiatry now called nutritional psychiatry that shows that what we eat really influences our mood, and it really has a significant impact on our mental health. Good quality foods, things that are plant-based, things that are rich in fiber, they feed the good kind of bacteria, the good kind of gut bug in our stomachs, and that really influences the brain. Poor quality food promotes not only weight gain and diabetes and all these other problems physically, but also inflammation throughout the body. And there's research studies that show that inflammation and depression are very closely connected. So what we eat, again, very important for our mood. And risk of depression in kids that have poor quality foods can be 25 to 35% higher in some studies. So it really is very significant. You know, how do you get a kid to eat well? Not an easy task. You can try to make it playful. You can try to eat the alphabet and have a different plan for each letter and make it a competition in the family who can eat the alphabet first. Or you can eat the rainbow and do colors or whatever you want. You try to encourage kids to try new things, and always, you know, what you offer is what they're gonna end up eating. So again, how you model good habits is really, really important. A word about gratitude and practicing gratitude and how important that is for our mental health. So we all have woken up and had all kinds of thoughts on our mind, work, money, all kinds of problems come up immediately as we wake. Kids might have different bubbles up there, but they might be very similar. You know, replacing that and instilling habits of gratitude and thinking about what you're grateful for is actually very good practice. You can start by a simple 2-minute exercise in the morning before getting out of bed, practicing yourself and teaching your child, thinking about the people that you're grateful for in your life or the things that you're grateful for. It really sets the tone for the day, and it adjusts the way you think and can be really helpful for your mood and your mental health. And lastly, word about technology, because we cannot not talk about that. So, you know, all our kids are on their devices from a very young age, and we do know that excessive media use causes depression, causes anxiety, increases the risk of all kinds of things for many reasons. These are the recommendations from the American Academy of Pediatrics, and they revise their recommendations through the years with the way technology develops. They cannot not revise it. But the newest recommendations say absolutely no screens for kids below 1, except for maybe video chatting with grandma, but not really for anything else. Between 18 months and between 1 and 2, they recommend very limited use and only when co-viewed with the parents, so not using it as an electronic babysitter, but using it as an activity, watching high-quality programming together, and then putting that into real life and practicing those skills learned or those topics or things that was watched, explore them in real life and talk about them. Between age 2 and 5, still only maximum 1 hour a day, and still co-viewed together, not alone. And above age 6, the recommendation is to still set consistent limits, create media-free space and time in your lives. So certain rooms are off limits and without any technology, meal times without any technology for anyone, including the parents. Creating, you know, not to use again for babysitting or as emotional pacifier. You know, you're upset, here's your iPad, play a little bit, you're gonna be fine. Don't use it like that. Use it especially with young kids. And then later on, as they grow older, and you know, schools use a lot of technology as well, and they also teach kids a lot about good digital citizenship and good practices online. Create your own media family plan on healthychildrens.org. There are samples that are available that you can create. They give you all the guidelines and the tips for it. So make use of that and be a good role model and do your homework. Know what they're doing. Learn the new apps. Go on it. Experiment with it yourself. You know the content. Same way as you won't let them to just go with any friend anywhere and you look into their lives, practice those same guidelines in their digital lives and really be aware of what they're doing online, who they're talking to, what websites they're visiting, what apps they're using. And there's many, many ways that you can help manage this. You know, Apple now has very easy screen time limiters built into the phones, but there's many, many programs that you can use. But really do your homework, know what they're doing, and think about their online lives as if they're real lives. And I think that's all I have as an introduction to set the tone for the night. And I think on to the workshops.
Dr. Fuhrer, thank you so much. I wish I could turn back time to 1985 and start again and do it right this time. So look, we're imperfect people, but I think the ideas that were brought forward were excellent ones. So thank you so very, very much. We did want to set the tone for now what will be hopefully some really interesting workshops for you to think about. As Dr. Fuhrer mentioned, this is International World Mental Health Awareness Day, and that was purposefully scheduled for this evening, these presentations. It's a night for us to pause and really think about our responsibilities in this area. So right now, without further ado, I'd like to have each of our facilitators just take a minute or two to introduce themselves and the workshop they'll be presented, so you have a better idea of which workshops you may be interested in attending. We'll start here all the way to my left.
Good evening, I'm Dr. Shamblin, and I'm doing a workshop on play. So many topics that were just mentioned really do fall into what we will be doing in the workshop on play. I invite the parents with younger children, preschool and early elementary. It's probably more appropriate for that range. And after the workshop, you'll never see play the same way or say, she's just playing. There's so much more to play and mental health that hopefully it will be a wonderful experience for you.
My name's Shane Owens. I am a psychologist, but more importantly, I'm a parent of 2 children in the district. I am the Assistant Director of Campus Mental Health Services at Farmingdale State College, and my practice is in Comac, so I will not have noticed anyone coming out of my office in this room. I'm going to talk about healthy transitions from middle school to high school to college. My presentation is specifically about college, but the transition to college really starts in middle school. So anyone with middle school kids or who serves middle school kids, you're welcome as well. If you have a graduating senior, it might be too late to come to my presentation, but I invite you to come anyway.
Good evening, I'm Max Van Levy. I'm very cold, I want to tell you. I'm freezing here, and I was trying to be very polite, not to say anything, but I am very cold. So, aside from that, I'm hoping that we'll have, for those of you who will choose to come to my workshop, we'll have a conversation about what trauma is and what trauma is not, and how to help youngsters deal with a lot of the challenges of what we all experience in today's world. So, and I'm hoping that the next room is much warmer.
And the levels of parents that might be interested, all levels?
Thank you. I think it would probably be relevant because we were going to look at it from a developmental point of view in terms of how experiences are incorporated and processed for children. So we welcome children also, but parents of children of all ages.
Namaste. My name is Marian Vogel. I'm a high school teacher here. I teach special education 14 years. I'm a licensed yoga instructor. I practice daily. My workshop, I will demonstrate some relaxation techniques, meditation techniques, asanas, the poses, and also breathing techniques. So, and the workshop is for all. Everybody will benefit from this. And you too, you can warm up some yoga.
And you met me, I'm Vera Foyer, I'm a child psychiatrist, and I'm going to be talking about anxiety and how to help kids manage their anxiety, and it's for parents of all ages.
Hi, good evening. My name is Carol Orris. I'm a child and adolescent psychiatrist. I consult here to the Rockville Center School District, and I'll be talking tonight about parenting in the elementary school years. And certainly while I do not have all the answers, and none of us do it perfectly, I hope that you leave with some idea of how to set your child up for academic success and emotional and social well-being, which of course are needed for academic success. So again, this is for the elementary school children. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Giovanna Okalika, and I'm a school social worker in Southside Middle School. And my workshop is going to be about, really about the feelings that come up for us as parents. I'm a social worker, but I'm really more talking from the lens of a parent. So the vulnerability that you might feel, the fragility you might feel when you hear some of these statistics. Mine is going to be more experiential, so doing mindfulness and just creating tools for yourself when your gas tank might feel empty because of all the stress that we experience, ways that you can manage it, and also ways that you can help your child manage their stress. So thank you.
So thank you very much. You'll have about 10 minutes to get to your first workshop. I would ask you to, you were given a feedback form when you came in. If you just take a minute to fill that out, you can leave them on the tables outside the auditorium. And there'll be feedback forms for all the workshops as well. Thank you all.